Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, Landon Dickerson, Jalen Hurts. I'm just saying, all these guys were drafted in round 2, so whatever Howie Roseman decides to do, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He could draft a long snapper for all I care. He will usually get it right. Welcome everybody to JG9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Joey Garrett, representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about the team behind me right here, the Philadelphia Eagles. They have multiple picks on the second day of the draft in round 2. They have pick number 50 and pick number 53. They also have a third-round pick in the mix, so we will see what the Eagles do in the second round. But one possibility is to bolster their running game, improve their running back room, and could Blake Corum be a possibility for the Philadelphia Eagles, the Michigan running back? Because he has taken a top 30 visit, according to multiple reports and multiple sources. He is on a bunch of top 30 visit tracker lists for the Philadelphia Eagles, meaning that they have used one of their 30 official visits on Blake Corum and on the Michigan running back. Corum, a very good player with the Wolverines, 2023, helped guide Michigan to a national championship, had 1,245 rushing yards, 27 rushing touchdowns. He was top 10 in the Heisman voting that year. 2022, 1,463 yards, 18 touchdowns, top 10 in Heisman voting yet again. His final stats with the Wolverines, 3,737 yards, 58 rushing touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry. He was consensus All-American in 2022. And last season, as Michigan won the national championship, he led the NCAA in rushing touchdowns and total touchdowns, and that was coming off a great 2022 campaign, where he was top 5 in touchdowns across the NCAA and second in the Big Ten in that category. Blake Corum projected as one of the top running backs off the board, not a first-round pick, but probably a second-round, at worst, a third-round pick, and the Philadelphia Eagles are showing interest in the man. So I want to break this down. Does this move make sense for the Eagles? Does it make sense as to why they're interested in Blake Corum? And does it make sense as to why they could draft a running back pretty early on in the draft, sometime on day 2, in round 2, maybe round 3, although I don't think you're going to be able to get Corum in round 3 if you're the Eagles, if they give a bit too low of a pick to do it. So round 2 with 50 or 53 is probably the most likely. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles badly need a running back. Eagles running back, that is a massive, massive need for them. One of the biggest needs for the Eagles going into this 2024 season, because that room is awfully thin right now. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is your number 1 back. He is great. You gave him a 3-year contract worth around $39 million. Problem with Barkley is that as good as he is, he might not be a guy you can depend on over the course of a full season. 2018 was the last time he played every game in a season. Now, obviously, when Barkley is healthy, he is really, really good. In his time with the Giants over the last 6 years, 5,211 yards, 2-time Pro Bowler, over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in 4 of the last 6 seasons, including each of the past 2 seasons, and 2 years ago, really played a big part in helping the Giants make it to the playoffs against all odds. Barkley's your one, but again, there is that injury history. But even if you take Barkley out of the equation, even if you assume he's going to play a full 17 games and be fully healthy the entire way, who do you have behind him? Kenneth Gainwell is your 2, that's fine. We'll talk more about Gainwell in just a bit. But behind him, you have no one. DeAndre Swift, now with the Chicago Bears. Boston Scott, still a free agent. He's not brought back. Rashad Penny, also not brought back. There's no chance he comes back to Philadelphia because he did absolutely nothing with the Eagles. Bit of a disappointment there in that running back room. So right now the Eagles have 4 running backs, Barkley, Gainwell, and then if you can name the other 2, you must be a diehard Eagle fan because the other 2 running backs are absolute no-names. You have Nicholls, the 7th-round pick in 2023 from the Green Bay Packers. He got cut by the Packers, signed a reserve future contract with the Eagles, didn't even run the ball in a single preseason game with Green Bay, so Nicholls might not even be in the NFL, might not play a single down in the NFL when all is said and done. And then you have Tyrion Davis-Price, the former LSU running back, 2 seasons in the NFL, former 3rd-round pick from the 49ers. He has done nothing in his career. 120 yards rushing, that is it. 3 yards a carry. He's probably not making a roster or latching on anywhere. So your 4 running backs right now, Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Gainwell, and then you have Nicholls and Tyrion Davis-Price. And that's a problem because the Eagles love running the football. They have the 6th most rushing attempts in the NFL last season. Granted, a lot of that was the tush-push, but Nick Sirianni does like to run the ball every now and then. And you have to figure that the Eagles will carry 4 running backs on the 53-man roster like they did last season with Swift, Scott, Gainwell, and Penny. even if they only carry 3 running backs, they've done that a few times, but even if they only carry 3, who is the third right now? Is it really going to be Lou Nicholls? Is it really going to be Davis Price? Especially knowing Saquon Barkley's injury history, are you really going to say that Lou Nicholls is one play away from being the feature back? Come on, that's absolutely crazy. You want to have a minimum of 3 running backs in the rotation. Because look at last year, you had DeAndre Swift in the rotation, you had Kenneth Gainwell in the rotation. Boston Scott, he had times in the rotation. He had moments in the rotation. He got multiple touches in 8 games as running back 3. And he was capable. Obviously, you can't trust Nicholls or Davis Price. So even by that logic of assuming Saquon Barkley can play a full 17 games and be the number 1 back and Kenneth Gainwell as the 2, you want a guy who can fit into the rotation and get some carries. And again, that is not even considering Barkley's injury history, because obviously if Barkley goes down, Gainwell becomes your 1, and I'm not sure you really want that. And Nicholls would be your 2 right now, and again, I don't really think you want that. Because Gainwell, he's a solid rotational piece, but he's not a lead back. You have to figure that. Blake Corum can be a lead back. Kenneth Gainwell cannot be. He's a rotational back, he's not a lead back. There are 3 games that Gainwell has played under Nick Sirianni where he got 13 or more carries. So 3 games where Gainwell had a pretty substantial workload. In those games, he did nothing. Yeah, that game in 2021 against the Detroit Lions on Halloween, 13 carries, 27 yards. Absolutely terrible. You have the game this past season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on September 25th on Monday Night Football. Not the playoff game, the regular season game. 14 carries, 43 yards. And then you had the opening game against the New England Patriots on September 10th, that game up in Foxborough, 14 carries, 54 yards. So Gainwell's had 3 games with what I would call an extensive workload. And in those games, with the extensive workload, more than 3 carries a quarter, 41 carries, 124 yards, 3 yards per carry, no touchdowns. So Kenneth Gainwell is not a feature back. He's a rotational back and an awfully good one at that, but he's not a feature back. Some guys are better as assistant coaches than head coaches. Gainwell is the same way. The Eagles need not just a back to fit into the rotation, but they need a lead back in case Barkley goes down, which you'd have to be dumb to not plan for considering his history. So even if you count Saquon Barkley's injury history, you figure, okay, you have Barkley, Gainwell, who else do you have? And then if Barkley goes down, you got Gainwell and he's not a feature back. So the Eagles need to draft a running back very, very early on in this draft, sometime on day 2, no later than round 4. So it makes a lot of sense why they would look at the Michigan man in Blake Corum. Now, the Eagles have 3 picks on day 2. The problem is that if they really like Corum, they might have to make something happen, might have to trade up a bit. They have 50 and 53, but the Los Angeles Chargers have picked 37, and they could be very interested in Corum. They are infatuated with the man, according to reports. They were the first team to give him a top 30 visit. Obviously, you got the connection with the Chargers because the head coach there is Jim Harbaugh, who recruited Blake Corum to come to Michigan. Absolutely loves the man, raves about him. I already did a video on that, so go check that out if you haven't already. I'll leave the link in the upper right corner and the link in the description. So if the Eagles really like Corum, they might have to leapfrog the Chargers at pick 37 to do it. Do they want to do that? Especially because there are plenty of other running backs you could take on day 2 and in round 2. I'm not sure, but you probably will not be able to get Corum. You won't be able to get him in the 3rd round. I can tell you that much. You won't be able to get him in the 3rd round with where the Eagles have a draft pick. Maybe you can get him 50 or 53, maybe, but that might be a bit of a stretch. The Chargers are the real wild card on this. If he doesn't go with the Chargers, you might be okay, but the Chargers are the real wild card on this is pick 37. So the Eagles might have to do some maneuvering, which Howie Roseman has done in the past before to get guys that he wants. We'll see what he does here. But obviously, Eagles need a running back. They need help in that running back room badly, especially considering Barkley's injury history and the massive shakeup in that room where no one came back outside of Gainwell because Swift, Penny, Scott, they're all gone as things stand. Swift definitely gone. Penny and Scott, I guess, could come back, but it is very unlikely, especially Penny. Scott might come back, but Penny definitely not. So we'll see what happens with the Philadelphia Eagles and Blake Corum, but there is interest there. Top 30 visit reported on by multiple sources, and we'll see on Friday in all likelihood where Blake Corum will go and if he will join the city of brotherly love. But what are your thoughts on Blake Corum? Do you think he's going to be a good running back in the NFL? Do you think he will go to the Philadelphia Eagles? Do you think the Eagles need a running back? Do you think they should draft a running back? And if so, how early on? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Who do you think will be the first running back off the board? This is a very interesting class this year. There's no Bijan Robinson like there was last year, where there's a clear-cut number 1 to go off the board. So we'll see what happens in the draft that takes place in a week. Let me know everything down below. And that's going to do for this episode of JG9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, JRGary9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is Jared Gary 9 signing off, and as always, go Jags.